You are listening to Dodging Divorce Disasters, a podcast where I interview divorce professionals that give you clear guidance, real talk, and smart strategies to help you make better decisions when it matters most. My name is Lori Hawkins. I am a divorce realtor, expert, and your host. I have the privilege of working with these professionals daily, and there is a wealth of knowledge in each episode. Let's get started. I am so excited today because I have Donna Cates here with me, and she is a new friend. I really have not known you for very long. I think we kind of became acquainted on LinkedIn, but you have a great background. Everything that I have read about you and the research that I've done on you has been just pristine. So I'm so excited and very thankful that you're taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today with me.
Well, I'm delighted, Lori, to be a guest, and I love the work that you're doing as well. And I know there's so much to be done and covered in this divorce space. So I'm
Exactly.
grateful for professionals like you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know that you are a CDFA
Yes,
and you are also a financial planner, right? A certified financial planner. Now you're also a mediator. Is that correct?
that is true.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you just kind of give the audience, our listeners, just kind of a bio, a little bit about you, the name of your company, and where you can service people, and we'll go from there.
That sounds awesome. So I own Money Matters Wealth Solutions. That's my wealth management firm and where I do my divorce financial planning work. But I also have a separate business called Navigating Divorce. And that's where I offer people the option to do divorce financial mediation. And I like to make the distinction that I'm not mediating the entire divorce, just the financial portion of it. So I got to stay in my lane. But a lot of people find that helpful, especially those who don't have young children. So those are the two businesses that I run, and I've been doing this work for over 25 years, and I absolutely love it. It is so needed, and I think there's never a bad question, and I'm here to answer all of the questions so people can make smart decisions as they're navigating divorce.
Okay, so when people are listening to this, I always find it very fascinating because I have been through my own divorce and I have learned so much just actually working in the divorce field, technology, all of that kind of good stuff. So I know there's probably a lot of people that are listening to this right now that hear the word mediator, but you only mediate the financial part. So kind of get a little bit deeper on that so that people know if they want to contact you, what exactly are you going to do for them as the financial mediator?
Okay, awesome. So, first, to distinguish from a litigated case, mediation is where you self select to actually sit down with a neutral third party who is going to work with the two of you, not representing either of you, but working between the two to help you two come to conclusions. So, the job of a mediator is not to advise you or to give you recommendations, but to help the two of you have a good conversation. And we might play, the what if game and help, say, well, have you thought about this? Or did you realize that if you do X, Y, and Z, this is going to be the result? But the role of the mediator, again, is not to advise, but to help the two of you come to your own conclusion. Once that's done, we draw up a memorandum of agreement on all of the things that you've agreed to on a financial basis. And then that's what you submit to your attorney, who then in turn puts it into legalese. They actually incorporate it into your divorce decree. But
Okay.
that's so, and I think the big distinction is knowing that mediation now is a voluntary process, and the two of you are both coming to the table to have I call it the adult conversations on how you're going to navigate the division of assets. And the interesting thing is that I know here in Alabama we have a lot of court ordered mediation. So the way that I practice my mediation versus a court ordered is that we literally take the time, typically in hour to 2 hour blocks, to meet and discuss and negotiate and come back. A court ordered mediation may be you sit down with somebody you've never met and you spend the next 2, 5, 10, 12 hours until everything
until
is
it's
done.
done.
Right.
Right.
And that's exhaustive and just not the best way to go, I think.
Right. It can almost be counterproductive, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody has their limits as to what they can comprehend. Does that include your financial includes anything to do with money? So does that have to do with the home, the pension plans, retirement plans, stocks, anything like that that has to do with money? You could take care of that. But you're talking about custody or anything outside of just what I kind of mentioned, you wouldn't have anything to do with. Is that kind of
That
what
is
you're saying?
correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, good, good. Well, I'm glad we made that distinction. Well, I always like to start with a fun fact. I see that you had put down that you're a best-selling author, but not just of 1 or 2 books, 3 books. Is that right? That is a very big feat. That is wonderful. Tell us about them.
Well, thank you so much. So it started with Financial Trendsetters, which is literally a, a bunch of financial professionals that we did an anthology that talked about all the money stuff. Now, my portion of that book did address divorce and money. So it was also divorce related. But then the next book was the Divorce Decoded, a manifesto for women
Mhm,
navigating divorce and beyond. In that book, we also have other professionals like you, people that
mhm.
are in all of the different professions that touch divorce.
Right.
And we give examples in that book of our own personal experiences with divorce. We also share our client experiences for
Mhm.
whatever field we're in. So it's very, very empowering. And then the newest book that literally just hit the market 2 weeks ago, that one's called A Woman's Guide to Financial Security and Fair Settlement because a man is not a financial plan. And it literally only addresses the financial well being of you and your family as you navigate divorce.
Oh, wow. That is great. Well, that is wonderful because most of us will never have 1 best-selling book. So for you to have 3, that is definitely feathers in your cap. Okay, let's move on to why most people are probably listening to this podcast. Dodging divorce disasters. All of
Mhm.
us that work in this area have all seen clients either make choices that aren't very good or have made decisions that have put them in a divorce disaster, to be perfectly honest. And so my goal is for someone that is going through this to listen to these stories and then you as the expert in your field explain to us how another decision could have been better or perhaps how these people listening to this can dodge this divorce disaster. So what do you have for us?
There are so many things that I could choose from,
I know.
and you know this because and this is the thing is it's not a criticism of us. We're human beings, and I think we make emotional decisions because we are emotional beings.
Mhm.
So, and that's why I love doing the work that I do. But the biggest I think fiasco that I've seen, divorce disaster, has actually occurred recently with a woman who was very affluent family. They owned multiple rental properties and, of course, their home. And she was actually awarded all of the properties. So her marital property and then 6 other rental properties, which sounds absolutely magnificent. But the unfortunate thing is, when she was awarded these, there was no consideration on whether or not she was going to be able to finance the existing mortgages on each of those properties into her own name. Now,
Oh.
her reality is that she did not work. Her job, even though it wasn't a true job that she got paid for, was
Mhm.
managing those rental properties. However, once she divorced, she's has no income. She was afforded some retirement assets that she could use to live off of. These retirement assets would be depleted based on my calculation within 5 years if she
Okay.
were to continue managing those rental properties. The reality is, Lloyd, is that she was never going to get refinanced on those mortgages because she had no income, history of income, to
Mm.
qualify her for those mortgages. So the
Oh my goodness.
reality is, had we addressed whether or not she could qualify for mortgages up front and had conversations with a mortgage broker first, we could have had come up with very different outcomes.
So did she come to you after the fact?
I'm
I mean,
happy to say that because I would be very upset with myself had she come to me first and ended up with that. Yeah.
right. Well, hearing you say that, I thought she must have come to you after the fact because you would have surely advised her. I don't know if you're aware, but I am one of the presenters for Second Saturday, and I'm not sure if you're aware of Second Saturday, but
Yes.
for the for the listeners, it is a divorce workshop for women. Most of the time, women. The one that I am a part of is just for women.
Yes.
And, it kind of is a place for women to come at any stage to gain knowledge while they may just be contemplating
Right.
divorce. I mean, they may be years away from even taking the first step, and it really doesn't matter in the process where you are. Long story long, that is one of the things that I hear constantly is, well, I've already done this. I've already signed this. And everyone there is just like, I mean, if that could be the biggest thing, it's just as they don't sign anything without speaking to an attorney or another expert in the field, whatever it is. Um, it's really, really hard for people to understand that. And I'm sure too, are you aware of like CDLPs,
Yeah.
certified divorce lending professionals? Because all of us, it's impossible for us all to be experts in everything, right? That's why we all have our field of expertise. I mean, I couldn't do what you do with the expertise that you have. You're not in the real estate market every day to know the market like I am. And, just like CDLPs, I mean, if they would have even contacted a CDLP before getting all of that. And I know it's a CDFA, the CDFA that presents to Second Saturday say all assets are not alike. I mean, you've got to be able to pay your bills. You got to have that liquid asset versus the annuities and this, that, and the other. And that's what you guys do. Y'all go through and say, at the bottom, it may be equal to $1 million, but those are not equal to $1 million, right?
Absolutely. And to reiterate something that you hinted at here is that, a lot of times when people are thinking about divorce, the first professional they think of is the divorce attorney. And don't get me wrong, you're definitely going to have a divorce attorney, or at least I advise you to not do it on your own.
Mhm.
But the divorce attorney might not always be the first best step. And the reason I say that is that, the attorney's not going to tell you what to do up front, but when you meet with that attorney, now you're just thinking litigation. And what I have found is that people will say, well, he said, I'm not getting any of this, or I'm not willing to do that. And
Right.
they come to that meeting with the attorney saying, well, he said X, Y, and Z, so I'm not getting it. What am I going to do instead? Well, you're putting the cart before the horse because we don't know. We don't know what's going to be the best outcome for you until we do the number crunching. So it's kind of like, let's slow the train down. Let's get a really clear understanding of your financial household. And that
Mhm.
includes debts, not just your assets and your income. And once we know that, now we can say, okay, what's going to make the most sense? Then that's when we look at, can I afford to can I get the mortgage refinanced to my name? Number one, do I have a credit score that's worthy of it? Do I have the income to support it? Do I have the cash flow to pay the mortgage? Right.
Right. Right.
But all of this is work that you're doing before anybody decides on anything. So
Right.
one thing to keep in mind is whatever your husband says, my recommendation is you just nod and say, okay, I hear you. You're not
Exactly.
agreeing to anything, you're not signing anything, because we have to do the number crunching to understand what makes the most sense.
Exactly. And I wish I had even known what a CDFA was when I went through my divorce many years ago. I didn't even know you guys existed. But, right off the bat, my attorney, which that's the only person that I knew to go to. I didn't realize what a vast array of experts are out there in the field of divorce. Excuse me. But if I had known a CDFA, and you tell me if this is part of what you do for your clients, I feel sure it is. But one of the first thing is they stick that budget in front of you and they're like, okay, list all the income, all the expensive, what you do on a monthly basis. And I mean, you're so overwhelmed. And if I had had someone just to be able to sit down with to say, like you said before, let's just calm down. And because you're just used to doing this and you take the emotion out of it.
Yes.
I feel like that's what we all kind of bring to the table because we're not emotionally invested in this particular divorce because it's not ours personally. But yet we understand the mechanics of it so well. So they can come to you and you're just like, "Okay," and you think of things, even though all of this stuff is listed, you may say, "Well, do you do this monthly?" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, yes." And so, I mean, you're just worth your wealth in gold, I feel like.
Well, and the thing is, and I will be honest with you and say that, when I tell people, yeah, they have to pay for my service, just like they have
Mhm,
to pay for
mhm.
yours and for an attorney. It's not a fun place to spend money,
Right,
but it
right,
is if you couch that fee that you're paying for the services that you're getting as an investment in your future self, it's worth every penny.
I agree.
So it's kinda like, yeah, nobody wants to spend the money that way, and yeah, you're already having to pay an attorney, and I get it, but, the reality is you really can't afford not to take advantage of this service.
Right,
If you see the value of that and you may not even see the value yet, but trust
right,
there is value there, you're gonna come out with a lot number 1, you're gonna have a lot better understanding of the decisions that you're making, and then secondly, you're gonna make much more informed decisions, and you're gonna
right,
understand the tax consequences and the growth potential, all of those things.
right,
So, and I think, like you said, Lori, it's all overwhelming. So if you can work with a professional who's going to help remove the emotion and take that back, we're just going
right,
to help you kind of peel the onion so that we uncover all of the important things. There are no
right.
surprises.
Right. So basically, the bottom line of the story you just told, what should people take away from it? What's a few things, the bottom line of how people could have handled this differently?
I think number one is to not be emotional because this particular person was emotionally attached to the rental properties and couldn't see anything else. She felt like she deserved to keep that. So, number one, managing the emotions. Number two, not just accepting something for the face value of it. We really do need to look at deeper level and see what the cash flow is gonna look like. Let me expand on that situation. So, let's assume that this woman could have gotten those mortgages refinanced in her name, okay? Now, it wasn't just getting the mortgages refinanced in her name and her being able to afford to pay those mortgages. Of course, she was getting rental income from them, and that was kinda offsetting that expense. But we
Mhm.
also have to take into consideration, like, how much is it costing me to maintain this home? You know, I work from home. The pest control guy showed up last week, and if he wants me to stroke him a check before he leaves. If you had sat that budget in front of me and
Mhm.
said, Donna, tell me what it costs you to live in your house, pest control would not have been front of mind,
Exactly.
right? So it's not just paying the mortgage, it's paying the mortgage and being able to replace the roof when it needs to be, to do the yard maintenance, all of the things. All right.
Exactly.
But without having that deep dive in all those moving pieces, we're making uninformed decisions. So
Yeah.
that's the thing is that you have to really dig deep and understand the cash flow,
Right.
of your household.
Yeah, I always suggest when if I'm written into a court order or a separation agreement and they come to me and they're like, I really have to sell the house, but I would love to keep the house. I think I'm going to try to refinance it, or it's been written in that if I can get refinanced. And I always tell them my opinion, my suggestion is if you can get it refinanced, I think that's great. And if you do work with a CDLP and they make sure you can do it not just now, but 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. That's great. But I always say I would pay $500 and a home inspector to come out and do an inspection because there are things that may be wrong with your home that you don't even realize right now. I mean, how often do you go under the crawl space? What if there's actually some structural damage that's under there that you have no idea? It's occurred since you bought the house 15 years ago or whatever it may be, because it may just not be worth it. Because once you get that house and you sign the documents, then it's going to all fall on you. So,
That's
and people just don't think about things like that.
mhm.
So, anyway, that is a lot of good information, a lot of good information. I did want to, as I talked about kind of doing some research on you and some things that you had just said, there were some questions that had come to mind I wanted to ask you about because I had read somewhere you had used the phrase that you like to take women from fear to empowerment, which I think is great. I think that's great. That might be the title of this video. But one of the things I jot down, like when a woman like maybe calls you for the first time, what do you find that she might be most afraid of? Where is her fear coming from?
The reality is, and this is regardless of how much money they have, whether they have a couple of zeros or, 10 zeros behind their
Mhm.
situation. It's always, am I gonna get my fair share? And am I going to be able to support myself and my kids? Am I gonna become the bag lady? And they use
Yeah.
those words.
Yeah. Nope, that makes perfect sense because that's exactly where I was too. And also I had written down then, so what do you tell them? How do you advise them at that point so that they don't feel totally paralyzed going through the divorce?
The first thing I explain is that, start with a household, with a set of circumstances, a specific amount of income, expenses, assets, and basically we're dividing everything. So
Right.
the first thing we have to realize is that life is going to look a little bit different financially post divorce in the immediate time period. That doesn't
Right.
mean it might not improve over time, but the day the divorce is finalizes, you've taken the whole pie and split it in half. So you have to accept that as a reality.
Mhm.
But, if you want to make informed decisions and not let your emotions drive the train, that's
Mhm.
when you have the power because now you're doing the research and delving into all of the things that we've already talked about to understand, what am I going to need? So, in
Right.
starting with defining the expenses, and I try not to even use the word budget because it makes everybody cringe,
I
but,
agree.
we focus on, tell me what your expenses are, get down I mean, you go and get your hair cut every 3 weeks, you get your nails done, what are you really spending? So, but we kinda walk down that and it's a path. It's like, let's tackle this first and let's understand what it's costing us to live. Now let's look at what your income is. Are
Right.
you living within your means before the divorce? Or you already living beyond your means? That's
Right.
gonna have an impact because if you're living beyond your means, that means that there's likely debt that y'all are gonna have to negotiate. It's a kind of
That's
a
so
step by step. Yeah. There's a lot of pieces to uncover, but it's being methodical about evaluating, what your current life situation is, and then us working together to show you the what if. If
right.
I accepted this instead of that, what's my financial well-being going to look like? Not just the day of divorce, but a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Right. Well, just thinking about you saying that, and this is just arbitrary, are there like three mistakes that maybe you see women make repeatedly that we can maybe just nip in the bud right here?
Yes. Number 1 the number 1 is assuming that it makes sense for you to keep the house, okay? A
Amen. Yeah.
emotional decision. I don't wanna move the kids out of the house that they've
Ugh,
known, out of their school district without understanding the numbers. The second one would be assuming that if you've been a stay-at-home mom, that you don't
mhm.
have value. You have an income, you're just not making it, right?
Right, right,
That and
right.
that's why, and this is the reality is a lot of the stay-at-home moms go, "Well, I don't wanna ask that, I don't wanna hurt him, I don't want to." It's like taking care of him. Well, you've been doing that all your life. Now it's time for you to step
Sorry.
up and
Yeah.
take care of yourself.
I am so sorry. Good gracious. I thought
No
I turned that
problem.
off. Go ahead. I am so sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, so, putting I call it pulling up your big girl britches and having a
Mhm.
seat at the financial table, knowing that you have value and that you do deserve half. And the legal system is going to divide everything 50-50. That's
Right.
that's the reality. You just get to decide how that's going to look if y'all are willing to negotiate with one another. And then I think that the third thing is having unrealistic expectations with alimony because
Mm,
the only reason that you would actually be getting alimony is number one, based on the length of your marriage. And number two, if there was a big discrepancy in your earnings to
right.
his.
Mhm.
But that's where back to the budget that comes into such value because you can ask for alimony, but you've got to give evidence of the need for it when it's
Mm.
appropriate. So those are three things that I would say are always present.
Well, what advice would you give someone that walks into your office to make her feel not so hopeless or defeated? I mean, honestly, because I mean, I feel like that's kind of how I felt in the beginning, you know? So,
Absolutely.
what advice, if I had come into you, what advice would you give me to give me some hope?
So there's a number of things that I could recommend. The first, you mentioned the second Saturday divorce workshop.
Hmm.
I also offer a divorce workshop virtually. And I would encourage you to attend something like that. It's educational. And in our situation, it may be different from yours, Lori, but we have a divorce attorney that educates you on all the legal stuff. And
Hmm.
and don't get me wrong, we know what we know about the legal system based on what we
Right.
see on television. So
Right.
we're going they're gonna explain to you all the legal terms of what you're entitled to, what you need to be considered, the different ways to divorce. Then we have a financial professional like myself that talks about
Hmm.
navigating all of the money stuff and all the data that you need to gather. Then the third portion is with our mental health professional or divorce coach who helps you with the grounding. And that's one thing I would advise everybody if you're not current in a counseling situation, I would definitely encourage that because we are emotional beings and we've got to be able to manage those emotions as we're going through this difficult phase. And even working with a divorce coach, because remember,
Hmm.
your counselor is working on past stuff. Let's deal with the trauma. How do we deal in the
Right.
present? But a divorce coach is going to be focusing on moving forward. What's
Right.
next? What can we recreate? We're giving up. But what's the new you? What's that gonna
Right.
look like?
Right. No, you hit it right on the head. I think that's excellent advice. I really do. In fact, you have given us a lot of great things to think about. As we're wrapping this up, is there anything that we didn't that you wanted to cover that you feel like that we didn't give adequate time for? Or do you think we kind of got everything in that you wanted to say?
I think we did. I think, and the biggest message in my hope would be everybody's takeaway is that this is not a journey that you need to take alone, and you need to surround yourself with positive people and set really strong boundaries around who those people are. So if they're
Right.
not positive and they're not supporting you, it might be time to just take a little bit of a hiatus, and that's okay because you're
Yeah.
protecting yourself and your mental well being. But knowing that this is not a journey that you want to take alone or you need to take alone. So the deal is you need to reach out to professionals like Lori and myself and attorneys and let us help connect you with the professionals that we believe would benefit you.
Exactly. I always say that if I don't know the answer, I feel very confident I've got somebody that I know that can. So,
Right.
Well, thank you so much. Now, you mentioned being in Alabama, but you can help people across the United States, right? I
That
mean,
is
you don't have
correct.
to be in that area. Is
That
that
is
correct?
correct, yes. And I'm a registered independent advisor, an RIA, so I'm able to work with anybody throughout the US. I actually have clients that are international, but they also are US citizens. So,
Mm.
but if you could be physically located elsewhere, but you gotta have a residence in the
Exactly.
US. But yes, and I do all of my meetings virtually, so that's, never a deal breaker there.
So, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you if they want to reach out to you?
I would love for you to look at my website, and that is moneymatterswealth.com. Really simple. And of course, follow me on social media. I do a lot of blog posts and such that folks might find helpful. So, but the website's going to get you to my workshop, my books, all of the resources that I have, and explain to you the work that I do.
That's perfect. And it's Donna Cates, and that's Cates, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your expertise with me and my listeners. You have given us a lot to think about and a lot of really good information. So I hope it really helps somebody to dodge a divorce disaster. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information contained herein is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please seek an attorney.